What up, Cavs Nation? I'm your host, Ethan Sands, and I'm back with another episode of the Wine and Gold Talk podcast. And we are coming to you after the Cavs' first win of the Eastern Conference semifinals over the Indiana Pacers, 126-104. Chris Fedor is in Indiana. Me and Jimmy are holding it down for y'all in Cleveland. Chris, what was the standout for you in today's win when it comes to how the Cavs were able to rebound from two straight losses at home? And no, you can't give the cop-out answer that Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, and DeAndre Hunter were back.
I just thought the Cavs got back to playing like themselves. The team that won 64 games in the regular season, the team that vaulted up the Eastern Conference standings, the team that had the look of a title contender. Their offense was crisp and rhythmic, and it wasn't sloggy. And their defense was really, really good, especially the zone defense that they used for a majority of the second quarter when they completely stifled Indiana's offense and held the Pacers to 13 points in the second quarter. And that's where the game got away from Indiana. That's where the Cavs were able to pull away because it was a tie game. Despite like all the great things that the Cavs did in the first quarter, and they threw the first punch and they were really, really physical and they ripped off the first 11, Indiana came back and they tied the game at the end of the first quarter. And then the Cavs switched to the 3-2 zone in the second quarter, and Indy had no answers for it. Like statistically, the Pacers are a terrible team when attacking a zone defense. That's what the stats say throughout the course of the regular season. So for the Cavs to go to that and to switch it up a little bit, I thought was a really nice wrinkle by Coach of the Year, Kenny Atkinson, because they've been using a 2-3 zone. They felt like they needed a 3-2 zone because they needed a better matchup with the spacing and the 5-out of Indy. And they kind of put that in over the last couple of days, and they used it at the right time. But overall, it looked like the Cavs. It felt like the Cavs. And this is the kind of team, when whole, this is the kind of team that can certainly rally from this 0-2 series deficit and find a way to pull this one out if they continue to do a lot of the things that they did in this particular game and stay true to themselves instead of getting caught up in Indy's game.
You're not allowed to say, hold on, you're not allowed to say when whole, Chris. See, did you not hear Ethan? You can't say when whole. Of course it's because they have part of the reason is because they have their guys back. Why did the Cavs look like themselves? It's because they had all of themselves? Is that part of it? Evan Mobley is like what Evan Mobley is doing in this zone defense. There's only one guy on the team that can do that. Okay? There's only one guy. As much as like Jared Allen's also a really good defensive player. He just can't do all the things that Evan Mobley does defensively. Donovan Mitchell, God, he's so good. He's been so good in this series. But you notice a vibe change when Darius is back. You notice a fresher Donovan at the end of the game. He's not dragging himself to the free throw line as much. You like the Pacers have to react differently to Darius Garland. You can switch sides. The ball can switch sides. You can attack from both sides. Someone should tell the Boston Celtics about that one as well. But of course that has something to do with it. What were you going to say, Ethan?
I was kind of going to lead you into what you already started doing, which is breaking down the players who had big games. To me, the three that stand out among all of the great performances tonight: Donovan, obviously, Evans, defense, and yes, we are going to get into him being at the head of the snake of a 3-2 zone, which is incredible for a 7-footer, incredible for a guy that's coming back from an ankle injury. And Chris, I know you want to dive into that, so we'll get into that in a second. But then also Max Strus, Jimmy, who do you think had the most impactful performance? And then who do you think had the most surprising performance for the Cavs tonight?
The answer is Darius Garland. And it's not the obvious answer. Like everybody's going to talk about Evan Mobley, Max Strus, the defense on Haliburton. But Darius's sheer presence occupies one of the better Indiana defenders. Darius's sheer presence allows the Cavs to not have Donovan do everything, especially when it comes to taking the ball up the floor against the pressure defense of Indy. Just having Darius out there to organize, to break down the defense, to handle the ball, that is a big deal for this team. Like, they missed his shot creation. They missed his playmaking. They missed his ability just to break down a defense. And obviously, when you have two all-stars in your backcourt and they're organizing your offense and they're getting you into stuff, it's going to make a huge difference. But it's the domino effect of having Darius and his ball handling capabilities, especially in a series where it doesn't feel like it's one for Ty Jerome. The struggles of Ty Jerome continued into game 3, and this is a series where a lot of his flaws as a player continue to get exposed. He's not the quickest. He's not the most athletic. He has a harder time dealing with the ball pressure of Andrew Nembhard and TJ McConnell. Darius doesn't. Like, Darius can break down any defender. Darius can speed past any defender. So, like, part of the reason why the Cavs were able to function the way that they did offensively, Donovan was brilliant. He was dazzling. He actually made a joke following the game that he only took 29 shots, not 30. And I told him he should have taken one more so he could have boosted that winning percentage when taking 30 shots, and he just kind of chuckled. Max was great. He hit timely shots. His defense against Tyrese Haliburton has been a story of this series, especially the last 2 games. Evan Mobley, what he did defensively, offensively, but Darius is part of the engine of this offense. And the Cavs, for all the things that they have said throughout the course of the year, I don't care what they say. They are not a defense-first team. This is a team that is fueled by its offense. And it's not a surprise to me that Donovan looked fresher. It's not a surprise to me that the Cavs looked like they were moving the ball better, that they were in better rhythm, that they didn't have to work so hard for offense. You know what I mean? In the first couple of games of the series, it felt like offense was more of a chore. And it didn't feel like that tonight. It felt like Indiana was the team that was answerless. And it's because the combination of Darius and Donovan and those two guys playing off each other and what that does for a defense when Darius is out there.
And I can only imagine what it would have been like if Darius didn't pick up so many quick fouls, including a very dumb offensive foul. We can get into the maturity factor of that a different day. That's not for today. But
today's a mature Darius day overall. Come on. That was a bad foul, but this is a very mature Darius day. This is 28 and a quarter, let's say, at least for Darius
almost
today.
29.
Can I give you, first of all, I want to give you a cool Darius stat that I just looked up hastily while Chris was talking. The Cavs had, we talked about shot distribution, right? Donovan, I didn't take 30 shots. It was a thing. Okay.
Yeah.
It was a thing. The first game or two. In game 2, it had to be a thing. And that performance is incredible and should be remembered as legendary, but for the last minute, that's too bad. Tonight, the Cavs had 8 dudes take at least 5 shots. That didn't happen. That hasn't happened the whole playoffs, but it didn't happen. I think 5 and 6 in game 2 and game 3. Maybe even, I don't know. I definitely know that they're all less than 8. I'm such the king of like looking up these stats while we're on the pod, and it's like I'm not writing anything down, but most of this like spiritually, I know that it's the most guys they've had in the playoffs shooting 5 shots. Shot distribution. We mentioned it when he missed the first game in game 2, or I'm sorry, game 1 of this series. The difference between the Pacers and Cavs at the time looked like the Pacers had their point guard and the Cavs didn't have their point guard. You have your point guard, you get more people involved. Cavs offense first team, it seems like they're a top-heavy defense team. You know, it's like Evan Mobley's here, Jared Allen's here, Isaac Okoro, Dean Wade, steep drop-off, you know, defensively. Offensively, they hit you from everywhere. Again, your personnel will tell you what kind of team you are. That the Cavs have built their roster to an offense first team. That's okay. It's good. If you can be an offense first team and a top 10 defense,
Yep.
You're cooking. And then I also just want to tip my cap to Max Strus.
Yep.
This is why they call him heat culture. I know he doesn't like it that they call him heat culture. This is playoff. Like I don't know how many people watched Nuggets Thunder tonight, but the Nuggets just poised and experienced their way to a win. Max Strus does that for your team. Max Strus adds that element to your team. Max Strus in the first, setting the tone is such a cliche thing that people say. Max Strus comes right into this game, hits a three, misses another three, runs across the court to get his own rebound on that other three, and then on the next offensive possession, gets his hand on an offensive rebound, tips it to, I want to say, Evan, who then pitches it to Jarrett for a dunk. In the first 94 seconds of the game. That is how you set the tone right there. And of course, he ends up with 27-7. His last two games have been incredible.
I think that's a great point. And I think Max has been, as you said, Jimmy, the tone setter. And Kenny Atkinson talked about it. Darius Garland talked about it, just how much they love having Max Strus. And Chris, I think it's become less of a conversation throughout this season as much as it was before the season began, especially with how many different rotations Kenny Atkinson was able to go with Max Strus missing the first 27 games of the season. Dean Wade, Isaac Okoro, whoever you may put in that starting lineup without Max Strus, it was, hey, we're still winning without Max. Now I think Max Strus is reminding folks why he is the perfect piece to fit with the core four.
Hey, why was that net rating so good? Do you guys know? Anyone know why the net rating was so good? Another Max thing I love real quick is how eager he is to, it's not just that he guards Tyrese Haliburton for 90 feet. It's like, particularly if he shoots a shot, he's going to it's like his favorite job he's ever had is to cover Tyrese Haliburton for 90 feet across the court.
He followed him on a jump ball. He is following him everywhere. There was a possession tonight. I don't know if you could see it on TV, but we could see it in the arena. Tyrese Haliburton's just standing out of bounds because he's had enough of Max Strus. It's toward the end of the game. He just had enough of Max Strus. He was standing out of bounds, and Max was standing out of bounds with him. Like everywhere Tyrese Haliburton goes, Max Strus is on him like a Snuggie. Like 94 feet, out of bounds, even on rebounds. Like Max looks, the first thing that he does is he looks for Tyrese Haliburton. Where is he? Got to pick him up. Got to bother him. And the last two games that Indiana has played have been the two lowest usage rating games of Tyrese Haliburton's playoffs. Like he can't get the ball. He can't break free to get the ball and organize the Pacers offense. Early on in the game, the Cavs were doing such a great job of forcing Tyrese to his left. That is the number one thing on the Haliburton-related scouting report. Do not let him go right. Everybody has been drilled. Jared Allen, Max Strus, Donovan Mitchell, everybody who is going to guard Tyrese Haliburton. Force him left, force him left, force him left. And the Cavs did that over and over and over again in the first quarter. And then at that point, the Pacers are like, okay, we got to go somewhere else to get some offense here. Because Tyrese, one, he can't get free. Two, the Cavs are taking away the thing that he wants to do. So when you make his catches tough, when you keep him from those kick-aheads and being as actively involved in the offense, that's going to play into the Cavs' hands. And that's a big part of Max Strus's role in this series. He wanted that assignment. He understands it is his assignment. And even if Tyrese Haliburton goes to the locker room, I wouldn't be surprised if Max followed him back there to go pee with him. That's how much he is just in his jersey everywhere he goes. And you can see the frustration, not just with Tyrese, but with the Indiana Pacers offense, because they just don't have the usual flow. They just don't have the guy who typically dictates tempo, pace, and terms of engagement. So Max Strus deserves a ton of credit for what the Cavs did tonight in Game 3 and what they did for a majority of the game in Game 2 as well.
I think Tyrese thought Max Strus was going to be in the interview room, and that's why he skipped his post game tonight. Or could it be that he had 4 points, 0 rebounds?
Yeah,
0 rebounds and 5 assists, 3 turnovers, 2 field goals made in a crucial home playoff game. Not great, Tyrese. Not great for your superstar stock. Not saying he's overrated. I didn't say it. I'm just saying it's not great for a superstar stock. I wrote a column earlier this week about how not overrated he is, but I would say that your S tier superstars are unscoutable. If Chris knows what's on the scouting report about you and he's calling it out and then they do it and then you score 4 points, I don't know that I'm ready to call you a superstar.
Rick Carlisle, after Game 2, was literally used the phrase "cut his blood flow off," is how the Cavs defense was guarding Tyrese Haliburton. He said it was not hard to score or get assists. It was hard for him to get the ball. And I think that was the denial on top of just how good the physicality intensity of the defense was, and especially the hedging that we saw in Game 2, and then translate that with your defensive player of the year at the forefront of the defense with arms spread wide, ability to get back and recover, ability to help out on either side of the perimeter, and then also understanding that if anybody were to get past him and get too deep, it's either DeAndre Hunter, Donovan Mitchell, Max Strus, or by all means, Evan Mobley coming chasing you down as well. Chris, what did you think about this new wrinkle that Kenny Atkinson threw out with Evan Mobley at the top of the key, manning the 3-2, and how difficult it was for skip passes, any mistakes it felt like that the Pacers would have made? Evan Mobley was at the forefront of those because of just his stature, his instinct, and what he's capable of on that end of the floor.
First of all, it is not a new wrinkle, guys. Kenny Atkinson took this from JB Bickerstaff. This was something that JB Bickerstaff did.
Years ago, though.
Yep. This is something that JB Bickerstaff did with Evan Mobley.
Did this factor into your coach of the year vote, Chris?
Nope, not at all. He said, I can use Evan Mobley the way that the Celtics and the Minnesota Timberwolves at times use Kevin Garnett. And he did. And it was very, very disruptive. And I thought it was really smart that Kenny Atkinson switched it to a 3-2 as opposed to a 2-3, just because, the spacing, because of the 5-out of the Pacers, and the way that it was deployed with Jarrett behind and Evan at the front is just rude, especially with the activity that was going on around those guys. Sam Merrill, Donovan Mitchell, Max Strus, whoever, DeAndre Hunter at times as well. So I did talk to a couple of players and I asked them about the similarities between that 3-2 and the JB Bickerstaff 3-2. And he said the only thing that is different, a couple of the players said the only thing that was different is that the principles and the tactics that they're using within it and the responsibilities that some of the other guys have within it. Like every single defense that you're in has its own guidelines. Not necessarily rules, but guidelines of how you're supposed to function within that. And some of those are different from what it used to be a couple of years ago. But the idea is the same. Put Evan Mobley out there and make the offense have to try and find small creases, make the offense have to make tough decisions. Passes are difficult. Dribbling is difficult. It took a long time for the Pacers to figure out, how to attack that particular zone.
I like it as a pace manager too. I mean, again, obviously it helps that the Cavs were scoring better tonight. But
do we take credit away from Kenny Atkinson if he took credit away from himself? In the post game, he said, "Well, the reason that I went to it is because we were in a lot of foul trouble. Donovan and Darius were both in foul trouble. So we kind of had to protect them." But yeah, I mean, it certainly worked But that's kind of why we did it, is because I was trying to protect us from more foul trouble as the game went on. And I was like, you don't have to discredit yourself. Like, take the win. It was a really, really good coaching.
But you also get credit for how they executed it when you did implement it, because
yes, that's right.
Yeah, it's not something you pull out every day. That's all. But I like it as a pace manager. Coming into this game, the Pacers were in the Cavs were in the first percentile of allowing transition frequency off of live rebounds in game 2, and in the bottom 10, which means the Pacers were in the 99th percentile in getting transition off of live rebounds. It's half the possessions basically. And so again, it's easier to set up a zone when you're making shots, but I'll be interested to see the pace numbers tomorrow. This felt different.
I think the play that I remember that kind of encapsulated the entire game for me and just Evan Mobley's impact was when a Pacers player was breaking down the floor, breakaway layup, and the pass is coming down, and Evan Mobley is probably 2 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet away from the guy trying to catch the ball, and just goes, yoink, I'll take those, and goes back in transition and creates an offensive opportunity for the Cavs, rather than everybody just looking back on defense we're not going to get there. We're not going to get to him. Evan says, oh, but I can. I'll go get it. Don't worry about it, guys. I have this handled. And I think the defensive end was expected, right? And even though the ankle injury, we always understood that somehow Evan Mobley's body just recovers dramatically with limited timeline. And yet what I was most impressed by was his offensive ability and also his willingness to go into the body of defenders and then turn to his left, get into a floater, hit his shots that require not only a whole lot of movement, but a lot of footwork. That's what his game is built around in the painted area. It's based on how he's able to maneuver and not necessarily use his strength, which has improved this year, but using his body and using the angles and his smarts to get where he wants on the floor. And I think his offensive game was maybe just a little bit less as good as the defensive end, just because of how phenomenal he was defensively. 3 steals, 3 blocks, but that doesn't measure up what the Indiana Pacers weren't able to do because he was simply standing in front of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing about their zone, we all know that Indy is not a team that goes to the offensive boards. They want to get back. They want to set their defense. They want to prevent any kind of transition. So, of course, a zone is susceptible to offensive rebounds, but it's not going to be susceptible to offensive rebounds when you're playing against a terrible offensive rebounding team. So the one area where teams against the Cavs throughout the course of the regular season have been able to burn them for using the zone, you just don't have to worry about that with the Pacers. And, if you have Jarrett at the back end of that thing, you feel like he can win his matchup and he can clean up the boards well enough. So I would expect the Cavs to continue to use it as this series progresses. It's not going to be their base defense, of course, but it is something that they're going to go to, especially given the Pacers' struggles against zone defenses throughout the course of the year.
I actually kind of chuckled when Donovan was like, we rebounded in the zone well tonight. It's like, well, yeah, they just ran the other way.
That's right. That's what they do.
Great job. Great job, everybody. Mission accomplished. I know Evan Mobley is the defensive player of the year, and we're comparing him to Kevin Garnett, and he literally just won the Hakeem Olajuwon trophy. But I was a little surprised the Pacers didn't at least try to see what he could do on a switch, because he of the 3 injured guys looked like he was the closest to himself tonight to me. But they didn't. The Pacers didn't make him do a lot of side to side stuff. I thought, at least test it. At least test it. It might not go well for you, but it's not going well for you otherwise. So what do you got to lose?
Yeah, I think it was interesting, and I think that might be something that they look at the film at and try and go back at. I think the other portion of today's game is just as Chris was mentioning, the free flowingness of the offense. It's even when Darius Garland wasn't on the floor. I mean, the Cavs took 20 more shots than the Indiana Pacers. The Cavs took 100 shots. Pacers took 80. My biggest thing on this, we talked about it a lot this series in particular. The Cavs live and die about a three-point shot. They made 14. We're 29.8% from deep in tonight's game. I think it also helps that the Pacers only made 9. We're 9 of 30 for 30% from beyond the arc as well. But what do you think was working again? Let's outside of Donovan Mitchell just being spectacular.
Well, I think part of it was the offensive rebounds that the Cavs collected. They had 18 of those. They had 31 second chance points. When you've got a defense scrambling and you're grabbing those offensive rebounds, what do you look for? Okay, can I put it back in? No, let me kick it out for a 3. So I think when the Cavs continue to dominate the boards like that, especially on the offensive end, they're going to get more shot opportunities, and a lot of those offensive rebounds do turn in to 3-point attempts. I think the other thing is that they allowed Donovan to play off the ball. You know, Donovan is a very good catch and shoot player, but he couldn't really get off the ball in game 2. He couldn't really get off the ball in game 1 either, you know, because the only other reliable ball handler that the Cavs had coming into the series, given the status of Darius Garland, it was Ty Jerome.
Does he still count, by the way, as a reliable ball handler?
I don't think so. Like, coming into the series, that was the thought. But it has just been a nightmare series for Ty. But because they had Darius, you allowed Donovan to play off the ball. You allowed some of those kickouts to go to Donovan Mitchell. Yeah, some of them were pull-up threes. Some of them were step-back threes. But some of them were catch-and-shoot opportunities that his teammates were able to create for him. So I thought that was a big component of that with the 3-point shooting as well for the Cavs. And, you know, Evan Mobley was willing to take a few too.
Offensive rebounds, man. This could be like a real swing point in the series, I feel like. Because we were wondering after game 1, how is Kenny going to manage this 2 bigs thing? Like, is that feasible?
Mm-hmm.
One of the ways we said at the beginning of the series, we were saying, if you're going to do it, you better kill it on the offensive rebounds. And that's double time true because Indiana is so, like, that is such like a 2 forces going in against each other thing, right?
Yeah.
Like the Cavs just saying we need to double down on our size and go offensive rebounding. The Pacers saying we're going to run all the freaking time. Whoever wins that battle wins the next possession decisively. Whatever happens next happens decisively. So the Cavs, like in the first half, 14 offensive rebounds. That's no wonder they look so good. No wonder they look so good because it accomplishes both ends. I mean, all the advanced numbers on what happens after you get an offensive rebound are crazy because the defense is already scrambled. And again, in Indiana's case, half their defense is already running the other way when this happens. So can't say enough about that.
9 of them too. 9 of the 18 from Evan
right.
Mobley
And for Kenny to stick with it, like that tells me that's something that he still believes in as like a core principle. I don't want to budge off this right now because this is a must-win game. So it's like this. I'm going down with this is what I think is the best I got, given the circumstances that I'm in. I get there are extenuating injuries and all that stuff, but this is like he's showing you who he really is right now, philosophically. So that's going to continue to be a swing. And by the way, I can see it going wrong for the Cavs again.
Sure.
And like some of these things can just be bounces when it comes to crashing offensive boards. Ty Jerome will always have game 1 in Miami, and I think we'll have other bright days ahead. Just maybe not in this series, or maybe we're in a little bit more show me mode right now with your minutes. You know.
Look, I mean, I think Ty is a role player. Ty is a backup point guard for a reason. He is not a starting point guard. The reason why he's a backup is because not every matchup is for him. Not every matchup is going to be favorable. He has deficiencies. this team that they're matched up with in the Eastern Conference semifinals has the components to exploit those deficiencies. They're just faster. They're more athletic than him. It's just the way it is. And look, for somebody like Ty, okay, if you don't have the advantage in speed and quickness and athleticism, where do you have an advantage? And can you find a way to swing that to your side? And he's crafty, he's big, he can be physical, he can create space. He's done that throughout the course of the year, but this matchup in particular, it might be the hardest one in the NBA for somebody like Ty.
It's also, we got to be fair. He was asked to perform an outsized version of his job. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what Chris is saying when he's saying he's a role player. Like, yeah, he's a sixth man. With Darius Garland out, they didn't say it like verbatim, but like, hey, it'd be swell if you could kind of be Darius Garland. We would never ask that of you. But if if you feel like it, or if you can pull it off, that'd be great. That's not going to work out. He's, you watch this, you got to think also, sixth man of the year. A lot of times it's the best second unit defender that they have is guarding him, but that's not Aaron Nesmith. Right. Or Andrew Nembhard.
Right.
Completely different beast. Different beast. Ty Jerome's still a very good basketball player. Ty Jerome still a useful playoff player in certain contexts. He just doesn't. In this context, if he could make shots, he's just not making shots right now.
Yeah, and when your role increases and your responsibility increases and your minutes increase, now all of a sudden defenses are paying more attention to you. And they're using some of their better defenders against you. Like, you're getting that level of respect. How many times did Ty throughout the course of the regular season have to deal repeatedly with like a Davion Mitchell-like defender? Very rarely. An Andrew Nembhard-like defender. An Aaron Nesmith-like defender. It's rare. So like, that's the thing. You become more of a marked man when that responsibility and that role increases. And that's another reason why I think, the impact of Darius was such a domino effect. Because if he's going to be out there on the floor, all of a sudden Indiana has to make a decision. Do we put Nembhard on Donovan? Do we put Nembhard on Darius? Can we get away with Tyrese Haliburton on this version of Darius? Or do we have to keep Tyrese on Max Strus? Then Aaron Nesmith. Do we put him on Darius? Or does Darius have the speed, quickness advantage against him? It's just, it all of a sudden makes Indiana have to make more matchup related decisions than what they had to in the first two games.
I just think there was also a different level of flow and pace and control for the Cavs on the offensive end. Like, it didn't feel like, as you were saying, Chris, that they were trying to match the pace of the Pacers. Like, obviously, we know the Cavs play fast. They sure do. But they don't play Indiana fast. They don't play up and down, up and down, up and down, right? They say, we can get into our half-court offense. We can manipulate space. We can swing the ball around. We know that if we can get you moving and the ball moving and our bodies moving, then that's how we tire our opponents out, usually, not just running up and down the floor getting transition points, right? So I think having Darius Garland back, having a different offensive mindset for today's game, and also something that felt like they were trying to do a little bit in game two, but again, just burnt out. And that's where the point I'm going to is they got more energy, not only from slowing the pace down a little bit, but it also disrupted what the Pacers are used to. The Pacers in their mind coming into game three are probably like, oh, we got them. We're going to just keep running them to death, running them up and down the court until they pass out. No, the Cavs said, okay, remember what Ty Jerome said before the series started? We dictate. We're going to dictate. That's what we do. That's what they're finally doing. And that's what what Chris wrote about in his game story about regaining their identity. The control of the series is still with Indiana, but going into Sunday, It just feels like the Cavs have what it takes if everybody remains healthy. And I wanted to get into that next. But I know
Real
Jimmy
quick,
wants to
Ty
say
Jerome
something
stat.
first.
I just have a Ty Jerome stat real quick. 13 minutes tonight. His lowest minute total when playing, obviously, since January 8th against the Thunder. That's a long time.
And the
I mean,
Thunder are a
he
good
lost the
defensive
spot
team.
in the rotation.
Yeah.
Like it went to Sam Merrill instead, and Sam was just more effective. And look, I give Kenny Atkinson a lot of credit because he is a guy who likes to trust his depth. He is a guy who has built up this bench. He is a guy that is willing to go deep in his rotation, but he's also a guy that is going to feel it out. And if somebody's just not playing well, then they're going to get skipped in the rotation and they're going to go to somebody else. And he recognized all the things that everybody else in this universe recognized. That Ty Jerome dribbled the ball out of bounds. Like Ty Jerome kept missing floaters. Ty Jerome could not beat defenders off the dribble in any sort of way. He just could not create space to get some of his shots off. He almost airballed a floater. Kenny saw all that and he was like, all right, we're just going to go away from you and we're going to put our faith in Sam. And Sam stepped up and he played really, really well.
So also, obviously, the other person that they would have wanted to see, maybe if he could have got more minutes, Darius Garland, because he was in foul trouble after the first quarter with 3 fouls in the first.
Yep.
And Kenny Atkinson had to moderate his game plan and change up what he was going to do with Darius. And we keep talking about all of the good things that Darius brought to the floor. And I'm not going to get into maturity factor because there were some things that I think were dumb, but I think there's also good things that he did. So I'm going to focus on how he was feeling. And in his post-game interview, I think it was Joe Varden of The Athletic that asked, can you explain what you're going through? And Darius was like, none of you would understand what I'm going through. Chris, I know you're there, and I know you have background information on this. What's the Darius situation? It felt like he was still laboring, still trying to figure out what his body would allow him to do. And even as you texted to our subtexters that he had to be looked at mid-game with that toe.
So the cameras turned off and everybody got away from Darius. And I asked Darius what he meant by that comment. I said, what do you mean that we don't know what you're going through? What did you mean by that? And he said, the pain that I'm dealing with in my toe. Everything that I had to do over the last 2 weeks to get myself ready to play this kind of game. And, it's very, very difficult for a player like Darius, the style of play that makes him so special, to just get thrust after 2 weeks off into the Eastern Conference semifinals for a team that is trailing the series 0-2. The pressure, the intensity, the physicality, there is no way to replicate that. He's been using the Alter G anti-gravity treadmill. He's been running in a pool so that he just does not put too much pressure on his foot, on his toe. When he makes a sharp cut, it bothers him. And I had somebody tell me as I was leaving the locker room tonight that the diagnosis for Darius, and we don't have to rehash the whole questionable thing. We don't. The Cavs were wrong from that standpoint. But I had somebody tell me that the diagnosis for Darius was not 2 weeks. It was longer than 2 weeks. So for him to make it back in 2 weeks, I think Darius feels pretty proud of himself. I think there was a sense of he might be pushing this. He might be rushing this, but he thinks he's ready to go. And we've seen enough from him, the way that he's moving and the way that his toe has responded to treatment and the way that his toe is healing, that we think he can play. And Donovan said something that I thought was interesting following the game. He said, even if Darius is 20%, even if he's 30%, his sheer presence and what that means for us as a basketball team is important. And I think it was you, Jimmy, who like sent this out to the subtexters earlier this afternoon. Like, we can't judge Darius Garland through the lens of all-star point guard Darius Garland. Not yet. He's not ready for that level of judgment. Maybe he gets there throughout the course of this playoff run. I don't know. Everything that I continue to hear is that this is something that he's going to have to constantly manage. And like how his toe feels tomorrow is going to matter. How his toe feels on Sunday is going to matter. I don't know that it's going to cause him to miss games, but I think his effectiveness is going to be tied to all of those different factors. It's just something that he's going to have to manage, and it's something that he's just going to have to deal with throughout the course of this playoff run. And it's unfortunate for him because he had 2 great games against the Heat. At one point, he was the leading Cavs scorer in the postseason. He came into tonight's game averaging 24 and 7, 24 points, 7 assists. And, you know, he was in control. He was playing a mature 2 games against Miami. He was doing all the things that the Cavs needed him to do for them to be the team that ultimately they want to be, which is a team that chases a championship. But it's clear that the toe is still bothering him. You can see it on his face. You can see it in the way that he moves. He is fighting through this. I do think he got back quicker than what some people internally were anticipating. And I think he understands that there were people that were questioning him, and he thought it was ridiculous that they were.
From this lens, is it the worst thing that Darius got into foul trouble tonight? Like, what do you play? 25 minutes? I don't know. That looked like a lot to him for where I was sitting.
It did.
I mean, there was a couple moments where I was like, oh, he's kind of. I wondered if he aggravated it. Aggravated. Internet mind. He aggravated it. And that's probably going to keep happening. And a little worried, like watching him out there today, a little worried that it could. Like, it seemed it's just so easy to, you know, not literally, but stub your toe in a basketball game. So many opportunities, especially when you're him navigating all people bigger than him and multiple bodies flying at him a lot of the time, you know? We think about from like what he meant to the game standpoint. We think about defensive presence, like the way Evan scares people from shooting the ball. Like in the first quarter, he swatted Tyrese's floater, which was really up there. By the way, he went up to get that, and then a couple possessions later or something, the ball ends up with Pascal Siakam under the basket, and like that should be 2 points. It is 2 points against if 85-90% of the NBA is standing there for Pascal Siakam, an all-star. Now Evan Mobley's there. It's a missed layup. Right? Darius, that's Evan's presence making that happen. Darius's presence on offense, similar. I think that's why Donovan was so adamant about saying, hey, man, whatever you can give me, like Darius's 20 or 30% makes such a difference for Donovan. Like, and it makes a difference for Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, all these guys who are dependent on other guys to get on the ball, play finishers, Sam Merrill, might get a few more open looks, Max, whatever. But for a guy like Donovan, it's such a sigh of relief. From not at this like 43, 9-5, that's your sigh of relief. Okay. But that can come from a sigh of relief. By the way, Donovan, back-to-back 40-point games. Only other guy to do that in franchise history in the playoffs is LeBron. Only other guy to have 3 separate instances of 3 straight 30-point games for the Cavs is LeBron as well. So this guy's really good.
And I think you could tell that the Cavs were not only feeding off Donovan, but like learning what was helping him, because obviously they wanted to give him the most help as possible. But like even when Darius was off the floor, Max was like, "Oh, I'll bring the ball up. You get off the ball. I'll bring the ball up." DeAndre, I'll bring the ball up. Evan Mobley, I'll bring the ball up. Like, we all can bring the ball up at some point if we're not getting hounded in the backcourt. Or somebody comes set a screen in the backcourt. We'll get off the ball, Donovan, do what you need to do to not only give yourself a breather, but also find a space, finding the nicks and crannies where you feel like you can be successful. And I think that's something that the Cavs have tried to do at various points throughout the season, but it became more apparent when Darius came back. And it was like, this is Donovan, like, still at not 100% because he's still dealing with the calf strain, but he looks so much cooler, so much calmer, so much more fluid than when he was trying to do it by himself because he had the ball in his hands. And we've talked about the draining of just the pounding of a basketball, especially when you're playing the amount of minutes that Donovan has. But I just want to get to the last person who made their return because I feel like it's only fair to him. DeAndre Hunter, dealing with that thumb injury. He played 20 minutes tonight. What did you guys think? Because coming into the game, it was questionable if he was going to be able to grip a basketball. And then Chris had a conversation with DeAndre before the game, and I'm going to let him explain that a little bit further. But I also just want to know what you guys thought the Cavs' biggest gain was from having DeAndre on the floor tonight.
I think his versatility. I think another defender that they could have be part of the zone or their switch-heavy scheme to bother the Pacers. I think it's going to take him some time to get the feel back. I think it's going to take him some time to really get used to playing through the pain in his thumb and the impact of every time the basketball comes his way. He catches it, he dribbles it, the touch around the rim and stuff like that. It's probably going to take some time. At least that's the sense that I get. But, he can still be effective in other ways. I thought at various points he played really good defense for the Cavs. I thought he rebounded the ball. He got himself in the mix. He was physical. He was tough. And I think, it's just another, whether he's effective or not, whether he has the touch or not, it's just another pathway theoretically for the Cavs to have offensive success that doesn't always require, Donovan Mitchell creating or Darius Garland creating or maybe Max Strus creating on the little two-man game that he's starting to get more and more adept at as he gets more and more comfortable with both Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. So I just think a lot of this is a presence thing. A lot of this is the minutes that he can occupy so that I don't want to go down this road, but so that other players don't have to play them. Right? I mean, Isaac Okoro didn't play tonight. And there are certain series that may be for Isaac. I don't know that this one is. And we've talked about that from the very beginning of this podcast. But when you have, DeAndre Hunter available, now you don't have to rely on Isaac Okoro the way that you did the other night. It's just occupying minutes, occupying space on the floor, the lineup versatility that you can have, the different combinations that you can use. I think all those things matter, even though I do think it's probably going to continue to be a struggle for him when it comes to his feel, especially on the offensive end of the floor.
I would have rather seen Isaac Okoro than Ty Jerome as much as we
did. Hey,
tonight.
First of all, Isaac got some mop-up duty. He did touch the floor. All right.
Does it count?
Let's not disrespect the man. It goes down in history.
Yes, it
goes down in history. It's in the playoff game.
I will say this about DeAndre. He showed me his thumb before the game in the locker room, and he put them two together to kind of show the difference in the swelling from one to the other one, and it is quite significant. And the swelling is at the base of his palm. So think about every time the basketball hits that part when you catch it, there's a sharp pain that he feels. But he also told me that he did not take a pain-killing shot.
Wow. Badass. And by the way, they're not throwing those passes soft all the time. Some of those are bullets. You see Donovan Mitchell rear back and throw those guys? They are moving. First of all, I want to give DeAndre Hunter a Ron Artest-esque Kobe passed me the ball. Exciting thumbs up on DeAndre Hunter getting 5 rebounds. That's very exciting to me. That is his, I believe that's his, I just did a quick box score count. 14th game with the Cavs with 5 rebounds. It's about half. It's not bad. I mean, you're 6'8". Love to bat a little higher than 500.
Here we go. It's time.
Nope. We're excited. We're excited. We're not doing that. He did it. He grabbed the ball, and it was hard for him to grab the ball. So that's like, I'll give him 6.5. Feeling great about it. I think DeAndre Hunter's biggest ad is a player that you have to respect as a shooter. That's the Isaac Okoro difference. That is at times the Dean Wade difference. Yeah, I don't. And by the way, I'm interested in the question of should the Pacers be respecting him right now? Like what Chris just said about him shooting the ball. Again, like the Evan Mobley thing. Can I see it? Can I see him make a few unguarded ones? Because he didn't. Did he make any tonight? He made 1 out of 5. Yeah. Let's see him make 2. I'm just like, if I'm the Pacers and if the Cavs are going to be roaring even close to full power, we're back to looking for any corner you can cut against this offense. And that's a corner I'd at least try to cut.
I also just think pulling this full circle, right? We talked a lot about the minutes of these different guys and how they are allocating and all these things. Like Kenny Atkinson said in his post-game press conference, basically what Chris has been saying. If you can give 15 to 20 minutes, Darius Garland, like we know that you're taking one for the team right now. DeAndre, if you can give 25, 30 minutes, right? And Evan Mobley, I was surprised that he played in his first game back, he played 35 minutes. I was surprised.
Did Evan Mobley also tell you that he didn't take any painkiller, Chris? Wow.
He did.
Wow.
Same with Darius.
Wow. These guys are tough as hell.
Tough as nails. And there you go. Remember what we were saying on the last podcast, how there was no information that fans could go off of. There was no information that reporters could go off of. That's stuff that gives them more credibility than they had in the past. And I think the other biggest thing, when we talked a lot about the offense, the Cavs scored 126 points, and as I mentioned earlier, they only made 14 threes, shooting 29.8% from deep. And they held one of the best offenses in the NBA to 104. It's kind of the duality of what they need to do for the remainder of the series. Even if you're not shooting the ball well, find ways to score the basketball. And Chris, I might be at the point where I'm like, Donovan might average 25 shot attempts a game, 30 shot attempts a game. Because, shoot, the Cavs need 3 more wins. The Pacers need 2 more wins. We're getting to that point.
Yeah, there was just like a different feel around this team, obviously, coming into this game and, of course, leaving this game too. And, there's something that Donovan has talked about throughout the course of the year is, how do we respond? How do we respond? How do we respond to prosperity? How do we respond to adversity? How do we respond to whatever comes our way? And, I don't know that too many people were like, this team is going to crumble because of what happened in game 2. But there was kind of that sense because of the looming specter of what's happening with these injuries. And then you started to get the feel over the previous 24 hours that all of them were going to be available, and all of them were like making positive strides toward that. They were trending in the right direction at the very least. And it's like the Cavs believe that when they are full strength or close to full strength, that they can compete with anyone. So I think like that obviously gave them a boost, not just on the court, but from a mental standpoint as well, of like, hey, part of the reason why we're down 0-2 is because of what we've been missing. Now we've got reinforcements coming. Now we're the team that won 64 games in the regular season. Now we're the historically great offense. Now we're the record-setting team that, looked like a championship contender coming into these playoffs. So that's like having that feeling around the team that makes this Cavs team a very, very dangerous one for Indiana to have to deal with.
Can we just acknowledge before we go the Donovan a dunk attempt, then oh crap, I'm not gonna be able to dunk this dunk attempt, then off the glass. That was unreal. That's like literally, if that happened in a video game, I'd be like, nah, that's nonsense. Come on.
The fact that it happened in the first quarter and it was like still like everybody wanted to talk about that. Like it just shows the magnitude. I saw people on X, formerly Twitter, be like, if Donovan was doing this back in the 90s, we would be having conversations about him being the GOAT.
If he was doing it in the 80s, they'd think he's an alien. This stuff is incredible, man. By the way, this is the difference between your Donovan Mitchells and Tyrese Haliburton.
Yes, of course.
Right here.
Yeah, there are
over and over and over and over and over again, night in, night out. Donovan's just not gonna. If Donovan gets you, like Donovan's just not scoring 4 points. I'm sorry, he's just not doing that. He'll get to the free throw line. He'll find a way. That Donovan Mitchell will never be this invisible in a basketball game.
I think the stat was he scored at least 20 points in 6 of the 7 playoff games that the Cavs have played thus far. The one that he scored less than, it was because he didn't need to. The game was already out of hand. I think that was the game in Miami when they didn't play him after the third quarter. Like, I don't know. I didn't look up the exact stat. I just know when it happened. Why it happened. There wasn't like somebody got him locked up or anything like that.
He's also getting more comfortable in terms of attacking Indiana's defense and some of Indiana's defenders, and he's seeing where he can have success against Indy's schemes. And that's a dangerous thing for a team like the Pacers. They might have to start switching some things up and trying some different wrinkles on the defensive end of the floor, because he just looks more and more comfortable, and he's finding where he can attack, and he's getting to the paint at will, and he's getting to the free throw line at will. Like, these dudes cannot stay in front of him.
Donovan Mitchell, 1 career playoff game in single digits, only 12 below 20 out of 60. This man's a boss. Tyrese Haliburton's got another level to climb.
Yeah. I mean, Donovan's a superstar, and the other one's an all-star. There are levels to this. I think everybody understands that.
Also, the one game where Donovan did not score 20 points in the playoffs this year was in Game 3 when the Cavs beat the Miami Heat 124-87. He had 13 points in that game. He didn't play very well, but it didn't matter. So I think, again, as Chris has been saying and as we've been saying for many different podcasts, there's levels to this. And Donovan Mitchell is proving why he is a superstar, proving why he has right to potentially be a first-team All-NBA kind of player this year. But with all that being said, that'll wrap up today's episode of the Wine and Gold Talk podcast. But remember to become a Cavs insider and interact with Chris, me, and Jimmy by subscribing to Subtext. This is where you can send in all your questions, and we can get back to you on our weekly Hey Chris episode. And if you don't know, this is also a Cavs community that allows you to simply have direct access to anything we're talking about in our Subtext community directly to your phones. And if you don't like it, that's fine. All you have to do is text the word stop. But if you like it, sign up for a 14-day free trial or visit cleveland.com/Cavs and click on the blue bar at the top of the page. And we can tell you that the people who sign up stick around because this is the best way to get insider coverage on the Cavs from me, Chris, and Jimmy. This isn't just our podcast, it's your podcast. And the only way to have your voice heard is through subtext. Y'all be safe. We out.